Okay, you Oscar nuts out there, I want you to meet the guy who kicked your ass and mine predicting the nominations. This is Matt Dittes,
Hmm.
who got 79% right. Now, three Derbyites got 79%, but you sneaky devil, you outscored the other two by points. Just a couple of points out of 32,000. What was your
Just
strategy?
oof. I wish I had a secret strategy that I could share or keep to myself, but I don't know. I mostly follow the guilds, the other awards that have overlap with voters with Oscar. I definitely was pretty confident in my top eight for Best Picture, and everything else I usually have a confident three or four, and then from there either deciding what I think is going to be a surprise upset or what's going to be an inclusion that maybe not everyone else is predicting, and cross my fingers.
And you have in the past done fairly well. Like last year, you did well, right? Run us through a
Mhm.
couple of the scores you're proud of at Gold Derby.
Ooh. Well, yeah, last year's Oscar nominations, I was either 10th or 12th. I was close to the top 10 and just missed it by two or three correct. So this year I made sure to spend an extra hour going over every category and making sure that I was confident in what I was going to predict. But yeah, definitely last year's Oscars and
In
then
National,
obviously
National
this.
Board of Review, you said you won once, and you're in and out of our top 24.
Yeah, and I won Globes Film Awards like 3 years ago, I think. But
Oh,
back
poor.
before there were prizes.
Yeah, back for where your prizes, right? But by the way, Matt wins $1,000 prize for this. Your check is in the mail, Matt. Believe me, right?
Thank you.
We mailed it yesterday. Wink, wink. No, it really is. And this is the hardest game in town. Everyone's looking for 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 those of you who can do this. You beat 3,000 people. There are some really smart people predicting here at Gold Derby. From Deadline Hollywood, Variety, veterans here. I've been at this game for 25 years, professionally speaking, and you beat me. Any more insights that you have when you do this? The guilds, of course, are a good thing. Um, what else are your kind of you know benchmarks and secrets?
Well, I definitely look around at other predictors on Gold Derby, yours, for example, other Oscar sites that I go to. I try to, but I think the biggest thing for me is to see the films. I make sure to watch. I mean, obviously, I couldn't see all of them beforehand. Like Cake didn't even open until today, for example, so I couldn't give my 2 cents onto whether I thought Jennifer Aniston was going to get in, which she didn't. But definitely seeing the films really helps me. For example, once I saw Mr. Turner, I knew there was no way that several of the tech branches weren't going to go for that movie. Once I saw A Most Violent Year, and just given its release date, I dropped Chastain for my predictions right away. Even though I really liked her, I just didn't think that. I try to put myself in the mindset of this collective group of Oscar voters, which is really hard to do. They're not one monolithic group, but just what's going to get number one votes. What do I think that the specific branches are really going to respond to? Like one of the predictions I was most proud of was Ida getting in for cinematography. Once I watched that movie, which I loved, and if you haven't seen it yet, everyone should check it out on Netflix. It was sort of a front runner in foreign film, but the cinematography is such a big aspect of that film, and so it stands out. And it's black and white, so I definitely thought the cinematography branch would go for that, and they did.
Tell us about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? What
I
what what
want
are you all about? Where do you live?
I'm 30, originally from Minnesota, and I moved to New York about 6 years ago. I live in Brooklyn with my husband and my two cats. I'm assistant director for a small contemporary dance company, and I choreograph and perform with them, and then I work in retail to pay the bills. That's
Excellent. And you've been an Oscar obsessive for a while?
long time. Yeah, I think 1997 was like the real turning point for me. I was 13, obsessed with Titanic as the rest of the country was, and to really witness history of. I love statistics, and so just to witness records being tied or broken, that was really the clincher to really get me into the Oscars. And then the next year with Shakespeare in Love beating Saving Private Ryan, there was just such a method to it, and it was such a political thing to witness that it was like, wait, there's a lot behind this, and so it really piqued my interest and started the obsession. It
And
was
how
only
long and how long have you been coming to Gold Derby, and how did you find out about us and all that?
I don't even know. I've been reading like all the online stuff forever that it all just sort of morphs. I know once you split off in maybe 2010 or 2011 and started Gold Derby in its current iteration, that's about when I found it, probably through the forums, which I don't post on, but I definitely
Oh,
read
you're
the
a lurker. All right. There are a lot of people who are lurkers, like Tina
yeah.
Fey lurks, right? And Tina says, if you actually post, you cross the line, that means you're officially insane, but it's okay to lurk. So
Sure, I'm alert. Yeah. And then I've
there are
read
a lot of lurkers.
about 2011.
Okay, that's great. That's we Gold Derby was founded around 1999, 2000. There were a couple different incarnations of those first couple of years there. Sasha Stone and I at Awards Daily. We don't know, but we were both first, but we don't know who was first, so we just kind of say it was tied, and then in 2005, the LA Times licensed Gold Derby. It was folded into there for about 5 years, 6 years, and then I took it back. Okay, now let me actually look at some of your predictions here. What you got right? You got all 8 out of 8 for Best Picture. Bravo! But you know what? I'm going to be really tough on you. I'm going to be cynical here. Let's see if you can take it. I think we all pretty much got 8 out of 8, right?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean,
so
clear.
Yeah, when you get 10, and you're automatically allowed 2 to be wrong.
Right.
Now, Best Actor, I kicked your ass here, Matt. Haha! I got all 5 out of 5. You got
3.
3, right? You went with Jake and David Oyelowo.
Yep, I did. And that was one of the categories I didn't touch. Those 5 I predicted like early December and stuck with it because I had Gyllenhaal in there at 100 to 1 odds, and I actually thought, especially with how well Nightcrawler was doing with the guilds, I thought he was in. I thought he was in for sure, and I really held out hope that Selma was going to do better than it did. But it was a tough category. I went 3 for 5 in Best Actor and Director, both this year and last year. So for some of the main awards, don't look to me.
But you made it up elsewhere. I had David Oyelowo till about 2 in the morning. I had a lot of stupid predictions till about 2 in the morning the night up, and then Paul Sheehan, our executive editor, goes, you better look at some of that stuff, Tom. You've got some really crazy shit in there. So, oh my God! And I looked at it and went, how could I have this? How could I? And then I just sensed this whole kind of anti-Selma thing, and I said, Carell's going to be in there because of the plastic nose. The most acting. They're suckers for that. So. And then Bradley Cooper we always underestimate him, so I put him in at the last second, and I got it right. But you got 5 for 5 for supporting actor. You got 4 for 5 out of supporting actress. What is your opinion? Why do you think Jennifer Aniston did not get nominated?
I think it just comes down to #1 votes. I think there was not necessarily a bias, but I think the TV thing maybe didn't help her in that category. If you look at the fact that Marianne Cotillard got in, I think there's a little more of a importance factor, or she's a serious actress, where Jennifer Aniston is more of she didn't have a moment that Sandra Bullock would have had, for example. That's really popular actress that is in a film that starts to do well other places. I can't decide if Cinelu Films, who released Cake, did a smart thing by holding off the release and only sending out screeners, or if it was a mistake. Because obviously the film's not getting the best reviews, but I have heard really good things about the performance, and I think if more of the public had seen it, she might have been more at the forefront of voters' minds. But I think it was just she didn't get enough #1 votes, and Miriam did.
The mistake in your analysis, first of all, let me straighten some things out here. The mistake you're making in the analysis, they're never voting on the best of anything at the Oscars, right? This year an Oscar voter actually told me, she said, I have no intention of seeing Still Alice, but I'm still going to vote for Julianne Moore. And so that's kind of typical. A week to 10 days before the Oscars last year, there were, before Oscar voting closed, let's say, there were legions of Academy members who had confessed to me they had not watched 12 Years a Slave. And they said the same thing to Pete Hammond and to Steve Pond and to Paul Sheehan, speaking of Paul. And they all went with Gravity for Best Picture because they were saying, look, the Academy members are not watching this movie. So therefore, I sense this, and they were wrong, of course, but we know that Gravity came close to beating Slave. So when it comes down to whether or not about the film with Jennifer Aniston, I don't think that was it at all. I think her tabloid coverage about her life in the tabloids hurt her. It's not a crossover of a bias of film people against TV and sitcom stars, Steve Carell got in. So
That's
it's not that. I think it was some other kind of blowback. She's very good in the movie, and it's big acting. That's what they love. That's why Carell got in with the plastic nose. They like big ham bone acting, and she's constantly aching in the movie, and she's constantly full of angst and suffering. But that said, I predicted she would get into, and I was wrong as well. So, but she got nominated at the Globes and SAG, right? Or no? Yes, she did. So it seemed logical to us. You did very well. 5 for 5 for original screenplay, 4 for 5 for adapted screenplay. What of all your Oscar predictions, any category, you can even go into sound mixing, what are you most proud of? You mentioned the cinematography with Ida. That's great. Anything else?
Let's see. Let me quick look over some things. I think going 5 for 5 in foreign film was. I think I was just most proud of some key snubs, like Force Majeure missing out in foreign, Life Itself missing in documentary. Obviously, I didn't call Lego Movie missing in animated.
Yeah, wow.
But I did think Everything Is Awesome was going to miss in song, so I just sort of had the snubs reversed for Lego Movie. But yeah, and there were just a lot of little surprises here in terms of what didn't make it, like Gone Girl missing adapted screenplay. Of course, I didn't call that, but that was crazy.
So what happens now? It's unfair of me to ask you this because we're a day away from PGA. We'll all be wiser when a lot of people watch this video. Right. They will have known what's won PGA and SAG. PGA's tomorrow, SAG is Sunday. We're doing this on Friday, January 23rd. So, but given we're at this moment in time, what do you think wins and why? Can anything beat Boyhood? Can anything?
I think the only thing that could is The Imitation Game, but I don't see it happening. I think Boyhood's going to take PGA, no question, tomorrow. I'm really confident in that. I think SAG will either go to Birdman or Grand Budapest, and BAFTA, I right now think will go to Grand Budapest, so there might be a lot of articles that it is a race, but I think Boyhood takes it, no question. I think partially it's because Linklater is so far out front, I think, for director. I think it's cynically, if you're just looking at the gimmick of the film and that it took 12 years to make, and it has this huge narrative behind it, actors can really respond to that. It's a passion project that's kind of intimate. I just don't see it missing, which is crazy. Just 6 months ago, I would have thought honestly that it wasn't even going to get a nomination. It just seemed too small a film. It was indie spirits, but I just don't think there's a good alternative. I think Grand Budapest and Birdman are both a little too idiosyncratic. I think Grand Budapest, all its nominations are the reward, and that I think Wes Anderson might take original screenplay, which is a pretty competitive category, and Birdman I've never seen as a consensus choice. I think it's a little too divisive. Some people really love it, and it'll certainly get #1 votes, but when you're looking at the preferential ballot, I think Boyhood takes it, but again, with the preferential ballot and Harvey Weinstein behind it and sort of a historical importance factor, Imitation Game is the only one that could eke it out, but I don't think we'll know that till the night of.
I agree, and I disagree with you. I agree that Boyhood wins, but I agree for different reasons, and I'll explain in a second. But I also think that there is a chance that Grand Budapest Hotel can win. Tariq Khan and I did a podcast the other day that he makes a convincing argument about the preferential ballot is just too new for us to be so presumptuous to think that we've figured it out. There's going to be some year, maybe this year, where something crazy happens, and we didn't see it coming because of the preferential ballot. So, what if, in other words, Budapest, which there is a lot of passion, people love it. It is very idiosyncratic, as you say, and eccentric, and not very substantive either. But what if it's everybody's #2? Then, of course, it wins. So, his argument is, this is going to happen at some point. That we're going to see something crazy with the preferential ballot. It might be this year because there is a kind of backlash against Boyhood. Everybody likes it, but not everybody loves it. But to your point, where I do agree with you, is that Imitation Game is a viable alternative, and it may go there. But basically, there is no alternative. Unbroken had that potential. It looked like the made-for-Oscar movie perfectly, and of course, it fell short. And nothing else emerged in its place to take down Boyhood. Let me ask you this. because you've been watching this race for some time, and I wonder if we, all of us prognosticators, including you guys who predict as users at Gold Derby, aren't really to blame for what's happened to the Oscars. All of us. You know, last year, 12 Years a Slave was out front from September on at Gold Derby to win, and it won. And there was no reason really for us to think it should, because no, you know, primarily African-American movie had ever won before. This year, Boyhood was out front from mid-August when we started taking predictions, and it never faltered. It never fell out of first place. Now, if you go back 3 years ago, Argo and you know, Les Mis and Lincoln and all of that, the lead in Zero Dark 30, the lead changed 6 times. Yeah. That race, and before, you know, Argo pulled it out at the end. That's the only time in recent memory that we've had a real race. Now, a few years ago, many of you have heard me tell this story before, but I just think it's so revealing. A few years ago, an Academy member told me she just hated The Hurt Locker. I just hate it. It's stupid. Flash forward a few months, and when it won, or no, when on the eve of the Oscars, I asked her, "So what did you vote for?" She said, "Oh, I voted for The Hurt Locker." I said, "You told me you hated that movie." And she said, "But I want to be on the winning team." You know, and a light went on in my head, and I just thought, that's what they're doing. That's exactly what they're all doing. There's so many crystal ballers out there now, so many people handicapping this race that it's clear in October, November that a front runner is emerging, and it tends to just walk all the way across the finish line because everyone's piling on top of it. We had no surprises last year in the major categories. Every single front runner won. The previous year, the only surprise was, and I'm happy to have caught this, Christoph Waltz winning over Tommy Lee Jones and Robert De Niro. But what do you think of that? Has the herd mentality taken over the Oscars?
Yes, I mean, they don't want to be wrong. Is essentially it. They don't want to seem to not be awarding, you know, the winning horse, like you say. I think part of that is the timetable, and that it's, you know, they moved up their awards. Every other you know, followed suit. Every other awards show followed suit with that, and there's just not enough time, I don't think, for them to form their own opinion necessarily or make their own choice. They have a lot of movies.
But come on, Matt, you're dealing with the people who are the biggest egomaniacs in America, Hollywooders, right? Who consider themselves to be mavericks by nature. No one's going to tell me what to do. They're just defiant, bombastic, selfish, pampered people in general. And being a Hollywooder, I opt, you know, confess to all of that. Although I'm not an Oscar voter, but I own one. If you could see it in the background.
I do. I see.
And my Golden Globe and my
nice collection.
I believe that what Harvey Weinstein says, and that is just buy them, you know. So, what was I even just saying here? Oh, these are, you know, very, very, you know, these are the last people who you would think would just follow along like sheep, but yet they do. I think you're right. They don't want to get it wrong. That's another very good way to put it.
I think it's just that enough of them do. You know, it's a huge group. Of course, not everyone even votes, but enough of them do that the people who are really voting with their heart, you know, especially when there's this many films, you know, 5 to 10. Now that there's more than 5, there's going to be more splintered factions of support, and the ones that are just not wanting to be wrong or to go with the herd, they get their votes through.
What do you think of people who would say, rightfully I would think, the Oscars are a sham, they're not rewarding the best of anything? To quote that, or to look at the comment of that Oscar voter I quoted a moment ago who said she's not even going to look at Still Alice, but she's going to vote for Julianne Moore, who's lost 5 times. We love Julianne, she's overdue. And giving Oscars for those kinds of reasons, you know, the one I love to mock all the time is and ridicule is Nicole Kidman winning for, you know, one scene in a plastic nose in the worst movie of the year according to Time magazine. And but she got it, of course, because she had just been dumped by Tom Cruise, the box office king of Hollywood. She had just lost the year before for Moulin Rouge, and there was this artistic pretension about that film. But Meryl Streep and Julianne Moore had more screen time than she did. She won in the lead. And the reason she ran in the lead, by the way, I was in discussion with all her people that year, was because she knew she was going to win because of all these other factors. Why accept the supporting Oscar when I know that I'm going to win no matter what?
Yep.
So, nobody in their right mind thinks that Sandra Bullock gave the best performance of the year in The Blind Side. She didn't. It was, again, we love her. And I love to make fun of Jean Dujardin. No one thought that was the best performance. That maybe his mother. But the point is that what do you say to people who voice that cynicism, going, the artist wasn't the best movie of the year, give me a break, or the rest of it? Because I think what they really are choosing with the Oscars are why they matter. Mm-hmm. I would say is this, and I'd like your opinion on it. Mm-hmm. As a fellow Oscarologist, I think why they matter is that they give us an insight into the minds of our cultural gods and goddesses. In other words, the fact I love to quote the most, and I think it's so telling, is they tell us who's in and out of the club or in favor. We know that Richard Burton certainly was. He went to his grave as Oscar's biggest loser, leaving behind him in the world Goldie Hawn, who had an Oscar. Red Buttons had one. I mean, all this craziness, right? And of course, he was a bad boy. He was drunk on the set, and he pissed off a lot of people. Peter O'Toole was tied with him at the time when Burton died at 7 losses. O'Toole then went on to, of course, to expand that to 8. Right. People are punished, and the modern example of that is Russell Crowe, who after he assaulted that BAFTA producer and threw that phone at a hotel clerk in Manhattan, he was never nominated again, even though Master and Commander had 10 nominations at the Oscars, and everybody got nominated except the movie's Master and Commander. And that tells us that they were punishing Russell Crowe. So that all said, end of monologue. I think they're tattling on themselves, these voters, don't you?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I don't know exactly what I'd say to those people that say, oh, the Oscars don't matter. It's just, for me at least, I separate them. The Oscars aren't necessarily, yes, they're hugely important, and I obsessively follow them, but they don't get it right. We know that they award the pretty young thing who is new on the scene, or what they think is most important, that's middle of the road, that won't stand up to history. You look at like Citizen Kane losing to How Green Was My Valley, which I think is perfectly valid, and any of those wins, each voter gets their one vote, just like we do in a presidential election. But for me, it's just separating what I think is the best from what they think is the best. Early on, what it would have been 2000, Almost Famous was far and away my favorite film of the year. Getting up Oscar morning, like it's Christmas morning, it doesn't get nominated for Best Picture. My heart sank. It was like I was stabbed in the heart. And that from then on, I've just been able to separate my heart with my head when it comes to the Oscars. And I think they're just kind of a historical curiosity. As you said, the Oscars, whatever is nominated and whatever wins, is sort of just a bellwether of what is going on in the culture or the industry at the moment, and that's really all they have to be.
Right. And there really is no such thing as a Best Picture of the Year. We know that. There's only one example in modern times where, since has been a proliferation of show business awards, where one film actually won everything. All the guilds, won the Golden Globe, won the Critics Awards, won the Oscar, ran the track. Every other year there were differences between, even when there was a majority opinion behind a certain movie, there were some exceptions. The one year was Schindler's List.
Right.
So, but what I found interesting about that was that same year where all of the Hollywood awards finally agreed and said, yes, there is such a thing as a Best Picture. It does exist, and it is Schindler's List. That same year, the rest of America disagreed, and the People's Choice Award went to a different Spielberg movie. It went to Jurassic Park. And in those days, the People's Choice Award was chosen by the Gallup poll. It was determined by the Gallup poll. So that was a scientific measurement of the American viewpoint. I think that's hilarious that we finally have a Best Picture. Everybody finally agrees in Hollywood, and America disagrees. So that just shows you that the pursuit of what we have here is ridiculous in the first place, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Ridiculous. Fun, but ridiculous.
So why do we care? We care because I think it's the ultimate reality TV show. We get to see our gods and goddesses up there be winners and losers just like me and you in life. We get to see them in gladiatorial sports. Don't admit it. When they have the 5 nominees on the screen and they name one of them the winner, admit it. You and I are looking for the face on the 4 losers. Who's got the biggest shit?
I rewind to every single acting category. I'll watch 5 times. Just the envelope opening, just to see the reactions.
You are mean.
I know. But yeah, it's exactly what you said. Just it's the ultimate reality competition, and the reason it's gotten so popular and there's such this proliferation of Oscar sites and journalists that are covering this race is that's what's important to America right now and the world.
Well, the reason that there's this proliferation of Oscar sites, etc., is that, and I was part of this at the LA Times, was that before 2005, there was nobody really covering the Oscars. Some of the bloggers might cover it, etc., but it was the province of the Hollywood trades, the Hollywood Reporter, Variety. It was considered a B2B, a business-to-business thing, so nobody else could get that precious FYC, for your consideration, ad money. Hollywood spends in those days, more than $100 million a year to win a statuette that costs only $400 to manufacture. Today, I calculated that the costs are closer to $150 million. But in 2005, when the LA Times acquired Gold Derby, they were the first consumer media that said, we're going to get in this game. Let's see if we could do it. And they could do it because they were LA. And they could overreach the whole the geographic area. And when they did it, and they had Oscar blogs and the rest of it, then all of a sudden, Vanity Fair and the New York Times said, well, we can do it too, and Yahoo, and blah, blah, blah. And then there was a proliferation of other sites, kind of award-specific sites, coming up there. And then the cat was out of the bag, and now the studios have to advertise everywhere, and it's this competition. I wonder how much of it would vanish and go away if the ads went away, and I imagine quite a bit of it. But in the days when Sasha and I started this, it wasn't about ads. The first 5 years of Gold Derby, we had a policy we refused to take ads. I don't know what I was thinking. What an idiot. But but I was very altruistic. I said, no, we're here to just track the race. And it never occurred to me that I was launching a business. But now it's, we were all interviewed recently by the New York Times, and Sasha Stone recalled the old days when it was just her and I in the sandbox. And she has a beautiful quote in the New York Times article, if you guys want to find it, from last week. She said, she says, Tom and I watched an industry bloom around us. We really did. It was just astonishing because people, like, if you go back to 1997, you were among those people who just cared for all the right reasons because it was fun. It was, and it matters. I mean, the King's Speech made $400 million worldwide as a result of winning Best Picture. Angelina Jolie is a star today because she won in the supporting category for Girl Interrupted and then became a superstar. Jennifer Lawrence is the biggest star of the world today right now because of an Oscar nomination, not her win. It was an Oscar nomination for Winter's Bone that brought her to the attention of the Hunger's Game, and then she got those roles, and then she ended up winning, of course, in Silver Linings Playbook. So they do matter in those ways too, don't they?
Right. Definitely. Yeah.
Well, what kind of philosophical thoughts like that do you have about all this?
I mean, I'll co-sign all of yours. I definitely saw everything. Obviously, I wasn't running my own site, but I saw that bloom of everything online, and I think it's because the demand was there. I think people like me, and if you just look, every year grows in terms of the number of people like Gold Derby who are predicting sites. The demand is there, and people care. It does matter.
It does. The year of Argo, Ben Affleck is a gambling man, a professional poker player, and whenever I would run into Ben on that Argo year, he knew his racetrack odds. The racetrack odds automatically update once per hour at Gold Derby, depending on what everybody's changes and predictions are. So even if I'm not there to clear the cash button in the admin area, which is normally how you could force an instant update, it changes every hour. And Alfonso Cuarón knew last year what his odds were at every moment, even though he didn't know how the odds work whenever I'd see him. I haven't posted this video yet. I've got to do it, of him asking me, now explain the odds again. I don't understand it. But he knew them. He was watching them all the time because they're calculating all that. I know.
Yep. It's a business. It's a gambling industry business.
What movies do you like this year? If you could give out the Matt Dittes Awards for Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress, who wins?
Oof. Well, I haven't seen everything that I want to see in terms of all the foreign films which could work their way in there, but I am really partial to Boyhood. Right behind me, if you can see, I have a Before Sunrise and Before Sunset poster. I love Richard Linklater. I loved Boyhood. I really loved Selma, and if I had a vote, I think that would be at the top of my ballot. Grand Budapest, loved, but if I had the one vote, I'd probably stick with Selma. Linklater for director. Oof, actor. I think I'd go with Keaton. I really liked Birdman. I didn't love it, but his performance I think was fantastic. As much as people want to say, oh, it's meta or he's playing himself, but no, it's a fantastic performance that holds up. And I know we've already discussed how we might feel in terms of rewarding a career and not a specific performance, but I have no qualms with Julianne Moore holding an Oscar at the end of the day.
For Still Alice? Have you seen it?
I have.
What do you think?
I mean, the movie is perfectly mediocre, and she almost transcends it often, but it's definitely not one of her top 5 performances. But I want her to have an Oscar.
See, you're as guilty as they are.
I know.
I agree with you, by the way. I'd vote for it, too, and I really did kind of like the movie.
I'm usually so against those career Oscars, but I can't with Julianne Moore. She needs it.
And I would not give Patricia Arquette the supporting actress award. I would just scream, category fraud, sorry, babe. You know, you either move over to lead. If you're not the lead actress of that movie, who is? Give me a break. All this category fraud that goes on every year. Sorry, Patricia, move over to lead and compete against Julianne Moore, or get out of the. I don't know who I'd give supporting actress to, and maybe Emma Stone. I don't know.
No, not a fan of her work in that movie, actually.
No, I don't even know. I don't have my list in front of me.
I'd still give it
Supporting actor J.K. Simmons really kicks ass. He deserves this, doesn't he? But he's not a supporting actor. He's the co-lead of that movie, right? More category fraud.
Always in the supporting categories. I would give supporting actor to Ethan Hawke.
Okay.
Or Mark Ruffalo, but narrowly Ethan Hawke.
I don't think either one of those is a really. I might give it to Steve Carell if he had a big scene. The problem is him in that movie is he's supporting, really, it's not lead. And the only reason he's in lead is because Sony Pictures Classics has J.K. Simmons, and they didn't want to put Steve in there to cause problems. But I think also Steve has a problem, and I've told him this personally in the film, where he doesn't have a big scene, a big explosive emotional scene that you need, that they play that clip on Oscar night. And they should have included that in the movie. I think it would have helped his chances.
Need that one Oscar clip scene. Yeah.
Well, Matt, congratulations again. Very impressive feat. Now we want you to do it again, because we want you to the pressure's on, kiddo, because we want to establish you as the person we steal from now on, because we're all frauds. We're giving the best performance by fraudulent Oscar pundit among the experts. But we know that the real McCoys are out there, and we're looking for you, and we hope you're it.
I hope so too. No pressure.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.